before we go on today's show, had a great question come in from our good friend Jeff Henor down there in the Florida area, I believe now is Jeff. You were in Atlanta for a while, but I believe you're in Florida now. And he said, I wish I'd submitted this question in advance, but I'm wondering if the culture is better after a crazy 2023 offseason for the BYU football program. He said, examples, Cody Epps entered the transfer portal before the season began. Kingsley, Suamata'i, and the Daly brothers weren't necessarily team players. Way too many transfer players coming in. I'm curious to know your thoughts on if BYU's culture is better. Well, yeah, because guess what? The culture is better because you can see it on the field. There is a camaraderie with BYU football that you can sense /feel /just see from BYU this season. I'm not saying they had bad apples. I'm just saying that last year, as you mentioned, BYU had a whole lot with regards to their roster construction they were trying to navigate. If I recall correctly, I think it was 60 some odd players were new and brought into the program last season ahead of BYU joining the Big 12 Conference. I think the coaching staff felt like, okay, let's try and bring an influx of new talent and see if it works out. Well, it did not. And BYU, instead of going back to the portal and saying, all right, we're going to try that again. We're going to turn it over all over again and tell a bunch of guys to get lost and try and bring in a new. They didn't do that. This year, they kind of said, okay, instead of what we did there, we'll be judicious with who we add via the transfer portal, and more, we're going to count on continuity. That's what they banked on this year. And is there any argument it hasn't worked out for the BYU football program? Anybody all opposed? Raise your hand. You know, the whole church thing when it comes to sitting in church meetings. But the thing about this is BYU football knows what it is as a program. Kalani talks about it all the time. He talks about it being a program. It just simply has to stand for more than just football. Yes, NIL is a part of BYU football, and it will be forever going forward here. Because guess what? NIL is going to be part of it. There's going to be actual revenue sharing from BYU itself to its athletes. The dynamics of college football are going to change. They have fundamentally changed in the last couple of years. There's zero doubt about that. But they're going to change even further. But BYU, just simply due to the nature of what Brigham Young University is, a church-affiliated university, there's always going to be a spiritual / bigger picture element to everything BYU does. There are going to be young men and I guess young women, in terms if you want to look at other sports, that will look at BYU and say, yeah, that's not for me. And Kalani Sitake has acknowledged that they have recruited guys and have said, you know what, maybe this isn't the right fit for you and not the right fit for us with you joining the program. Let's just shake hands, part ways, and call it a day. I can understand doing that. And I actually appreciate the fact that BYU is not going to operate like a lot of other universities where if you feel like the talent is there, it doesn't matter what you have to say, you get them on campus and then make up the rest later. It happens way too often across the country with a lot of universities. They will say and do anything within their power to get you on campus, even if they have zero intention on following through with those quote-unquote promises they made to you. I'm speaking generally in terms of a lot of these programs out there. The way BYU operates, Kalani is not going to go out there and blow smoke up a guy's you-know-what to make them think, oh, BYU's... No. He will tell them exactly what BYU requires of its athletes. You have to abide by the honor code. You have to abide by the fact that we are a school that values academics, and you have to stay ahead of your schoolwork and stay on top of it. That's just non-negotiables. Like, you just cannot do that. The other thing about it is, it's a faith-based institution. You will take religion classes. You will interact with a lot. If you're not a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, you'll be interacting with a student body that is, I think, is it 98, if not 99% LDS or members of the predominant faith at the university? Yeah, it can be isolating. But the thing about it is, if you look at the dynamic of the BYU roster right now and the makeup in terms of what they have brought in, they're doing a great job of having, I think, what I would consider a very diverse roster. Connor Pay talked not too long ago about a guy like Maury Bamba. I had no idea Maury Bamba was Muslim, and he prays in team meetings in Arabic. That's absolutely incredible to me. Jake Retzlaff was on Jim Rome earlier this week talking about the fact that he absolutely loves being in Provo, Utah, despite being one of just 3 members of the Jewish faith on the entire campus. He says, it's a place I can thrive. I've been encouraged to live my faith openly. This is a really cool thing that BYU has that stands out quite literally from every other university out there. And I'm even including other church-affiliated universities. No offense to Baylor, TCU, and the like. But BYU lives what it preaches. And you may want to quibble with that a little bit. Great. You can quibble with it if you want. You can downright argue with me about it. But Kalani has got the right motivation with what he's trying to do with BYU. It's got to stand for more than just a football program that's out there to win games on any given Saturday. Yes, we all, speaking collectively, me as your host talking about BYU, you consuming this. And by the way, met like 6 or 7 of you last night at the BYU basketball game, stopping me in the middle of the hall. A couple of you came over to Media Row to say hi. Colby, Jake, I can't even remember. So many people. The fact that you guys stopped me to say hello and thank you for the podcast means the world to me. And that kind of is a dichotomy of what this BYU thing is. It pulls in a lot of people into what I like to consider like this big tent of what BYU fandom is. And it goes to the BYU football program as well. They're part of it. That's who we all coalesce around to root on and obviously, in my case, analyze and break down and talk about. It's a really cool thing. And I think Kalani's got the right mentality when it comes to building out this program. He wants it to represent the faith, speaking of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, extremely well. He does not want to besmirch the good name of the church and its sponsoring institution. He doesn't want to do any of that. He doesn't want to bring shame upon Brigham Young University. But at the same time, he wants it to be inclusive of all. You can bring guys in who are Muslim, who are Jewish, who may have other Christian denominations that they are believers of, but they can come and thrive in Provo at BYU, but also play high-level football. So, yeah, I'm getting off on this big diatribe here, Jeff, based on a very simple question. But, yeah, there's absolutely zero doubt to me that the culture is completely changed this year for BYU. It's clearly evident. You watch it, you talk about it, you hear it. I'm around it. I can feel there's a different dynamic to it. And I'll probably have Connor Pay. Fingers crossed we get him tomorrow. That's the hope, is we will have him on tomorrow's show. But it's a unique thing that BYU has in college sports out there. And quite frankly, I hope it never goes away. I hope that BYU keeps it obviously front of mind when it comes to what they're doing with their football program. There have been church leaders who have said that BYU is a recruiting tool, speaking of a missionary tool for the church. There's others who think it's part of the college experience. Regardless, Kalani has got the right mindset of what he's trying to do with BYU football. I think it represents the university extremely well, puts a great foot forward when BYU, as they are right now, is 9th in the country, 8-0 on the season, and doing incredible things. I hope it continues forever. I hope they can continue to kind of distinguish themselves with how they play football. Tough, hard-nosed football, but at the same time, a football program that stands for more than just playing football. It represents more than that. And I think the culture absolutely has changed, and I think it's as good as it quite literally has ever been under Kalani Sitake's regime, now 9 years in to his run.